Welcome to the Old-Fashioned Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons, while drinking an old-fashioned. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button now. Platforms other than YouTube tend to block some of our content. Subscribe now to get up-to-date videos and shorts as they release. Now, enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Old-Fashioned Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old-fashioned. I'm Brian.
And I'm Russ.
And I'm Merle.
Merle ended season 1, and we thought, you know what, we're going to bring him back, and he's going to start off season 2. Why? Because we're in November, and in November we always talk Veterans Day and veterans. So,
Can you believe that we actually went all the way through a season?
well, I can believe that I did. I was quite certain that you would have ninja smoke bombed before. There were some times you're like, oh my gosh.
There was a couple times when you'd call and say, hey, you need to be here in the next 30 minutes.
No, that's not true. That's not true. It's never been a 30-minute. But most of you guys have figured out we will bank episodes. We'll do 3 to 6 at a time, and we'll bank them just because this is not a profession for us. We certainly don't get paid for this, but we also are working around other folks' schedules. So on this episode, Merle's we talked about on the last episode of season 1, Marine. So we wanted to talk about notable Freemasons in the military, but we want him to decide if one of these folks were a Mason or not.
Okay.
Okay. So Russ and I are going to go back and forth and see. Russ kind of reads something, I'll read something, and you'll let us know if they're a Mason.
Okay.
All right, ready? So before we start, General Douglas MacArthur once said, Freemasonry embraces the highest moral laws and will bear the test of any system of ethics or philosophy ever promulgated for the uplift of man. Mm-hmm. So I thought that. Now, obviously, we know General MacArthur was a Mason, so we'll get there. There was a time around when wars were going on that lodges across the country were doing degree work 24 hours a day and 6 days a week, so folks could be Masons before they went off to war. It was a very
And
important
did that
time.
right here at Albert Pike.
Did that at Albert Pike is why I've heard some crazy stories of just pumping them out because they wanted to serve. Here's a did you know? Of the a total of 224 men that are Masons have been awarded the Medal of Honor. Mm-hmm. So and one of them out of Albert Pike, which we talked about on a previous episode, Brother Erwin Bleckley. Mm-hmm. So we'll jump right in. Obviously, Douglas MacArthur is a Mason. He was pretty controversial. But significantly contributed to the military in World War I, II, and the Korean War. So that's a give me, right?
So, next, the most decorated soldier in World War II, Audie Murphy. Was he a Mason?
He was a Mason.
He was a Mason,
Very
right?
good.
All right. So we got some easy ones, the first 3 or 4 that's going to get wild.
Yeah.
John Glenn, first astronaut to orbit the Earth, completing 3 orbits in 62. Obviously a Mason,
Yes.
right?
Buzz Aldrin, the pilot of Apollo 11, lunar landed the Eagle. So was Buzz a Mason?
I'm going to say yes.
Buzz was a Mason.
Yes.
Okay. Davy Crockett. Not only was he a colonel of the Lawrence County Militia in Tennessee, he was elected to Congress in 1826, died at the Alamo.
Yes,
Was he a Mason?
Davy Crockett was a Mason.
He was a Mason. Now we're going to get a little wild because Russ hasn't seen all of these.
Yeah. So, Commodore John Paul Jones. So, known as the father of the U.S. Navy, very close friends with Hancock and Franklin. There was a piracy scandal he was involved in, but posthumously he was pardoned. Mason? Not a Mason.
John Paul Jones was a Mason.
He was a Mason. Nice.
Boom.
I didn't want to give this to Russ, but I know instantly as I have it, I'm going to get challenged because all things German are Russ, so I'll do it in my best Kansas German accent. Baron Friedrich von Steuben. Not bad?
Not bad.
Not bad. He was a Prussian who joined Washington at Valley Forge. He was credited with being the founder of the U.S. Army in in May of 1778.
That's a big deal.
General Washington recommended him to Congress appointing Steuben as Inspector General of the Army. Was he a Mason or not?
I'm going to say yes, he was a Mason.
He was. He started in Prussia. Okay.
Samuel Nicholas created the Marine Corps. Was he a Mason?
Samuel Nichols was a Mason.
He was a Mason. Look at that. So we've got folks off camera, and I know there's some folks that are surprised. So we're about to trap. Here we go.
All right.
General Henry Hap Arnold. He developed the Air Force into a separate branch of the armed services. Mason or not?
Not a Mason.
Definitely a Mason. He is a Mason.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. I knew we'd get a little snaky here.
Okay, so
This is your history thing. This is for you.
so both Lewis and Clark. What do you think?
Both of them were Masons.
Both of them were Masons.
Yes.
Decorated soldiers and explorers of the Northwest. Is it called the Lewis and Clark Trail? What is that called? I don't know. Well, we'll look it up, folks. We can't do everything for you. Admiral William F. Reynolds. He was the first Coast Guard officer to ever become an admiral. But was it enough for him to be a Mason?
I'm going to say not a Mason.
He was a Mason.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh. So General Omar Bradley commanded the 12th Army Group during the invasion of Europe during World War II. Is he a Mason?
Every time I say no, I'm wrong, so we're going to say he's a Mason.
He's a Mason. He's a Mason. Okay.
I actually would have gotten that wrong.
Alert, alert, alert. Here we go. Admiral Arleigh A. Burke. He was instrumental in molding the Navy into the fleet that would eventually prevail in the Cold War. Was he a Mason or not?
Well, you gave us this alert, so that means something. I'm going to say he's a Mason.
He's a Mason. Oh, I'll tell you a little fun fact about great Uncle Richard, but I'm going to let you go ahead here.
Well, okay. Admiral Richard Byrd, naval aviator and explorer of both the Arctic and Antarctica, who became famous in 1926 as the first man credited with flying to the North Pole. He also was a Medal of Honor recipient.
I will tell you this. I'll give you a secret. I have no family lineage that was a Mason. So, is Admiral Richard Byrd a Mason or not?
So I don't know that he's actually kin to you because I've seen no documentation on that fact. I'm going to say he is not a Mason.
He is a Mason because he's not related to me, folks. It was another trap.
Wait a minute, I got to have one.
Okay. General Mark Wayne Clark. He commanded the Allied forces in 43 and 44 during the
Fifth Army.
In the Fifth Army, in the campaign against the Axis powers. Okay, Fifth Army. Was he a Mason or not?
Russ?
I would say yes.
I agree.
You'd be right. How about this one, Russ? This is a good one. I did not know the answer to this one, and I would have got it wrong.
I don't know the answer to this. So, General Jimmy Doolittle, aviation pioneer and famed World War II air commander. The Doolittle raid on Tokyo.
Got a Medal of Honor?
Medal of Honor for that. What do you think? Mason? No Mason.
I'm going to say Doolittle was a Mason.
Off camera, we're getting the nod. The ASL sign for yes. Oh, he's a Mason. Yeah. This was an interesting one. I had to do a little research because I didn't know. General George V. Marshall. He was a former Secretary of State. 1953, he got the Nobel Peace Prize for his development of the Marshall Plan. Mm-hmm. Was he a Mason?
I'm going to say he was a Mason.
He was a Mason. Now, what I didn't know, did either one of you know what the Marshall Plan was?
Yes, it was to send military aid
to Berlin.
It was all of the above. So in 1948, Truman, also a Mason, signed the Economic Recovery Act that was billed in part by the Marshall Plan. It proposed U.S. provide economic assistance to restore the economic infrastructure of post-war Europe. I had no idea, but I thought that was very interesting. Once I saw Truman, I'm like, he's got to be a Mason.
So he was general during World War II. What was his position? the entire time.
Generally speaking, a general, I don't know. What was it?
I don't know if it was called the Joint Chiefs back then, but he was in Washington. He was the.
Was he like a general of the army? Like, there's not been very many. That's a 5-star.
Yes,
There's not been very many.
He was, along with Eisenhower.
Well, we're going to see that.
Bradley.
It'll be right across the bottom,
Yeah.
so we don't know that for
Yeah.
sure. But all things history.
So whatever that
us.
position, the Joint Chief, whatever that position.
You think he was
called
head of
then,
all of the military at the time?
He was it. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, look across the bottom. I'm sure Russ is right because he is when it comes to history. Eddie Rickenbacker. We talked about him on the Erwin Bleckley podcast. He was the leading American ace in WW1.
26 kills.
Is that what it was? 26 kills? Mason or not?
He's a Mason.
He's a Mason. We teased that through. This was a good one for me.
So, General John J. Pershing. He was.
He saw a lot of duty on the
Okay,
plains. Yeah, in the
okay.
6th and 10th Cavalry.
Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that or read it.
Yeah, we have a prompter for those who don't know.
Yes, and
Old
he was
eyes.
called. I need new glasses. Pershing was also called Blackjack Pershing. He was commander of U.S. forces during World War One.
But why was he called Blackjack? Because the 10th Cavalry that he commanded was one of 2 black cavalry regiments that were commanded by white officers. So he was Blackjack. Was he a Mason?
So Blackjack, was he a Mason?
I'm going to say Blackjack was a Mason.
Blackjack was a Mason. All right. This is a newer, so that we're getting into the new time. General Walter Boomer, retired 4-star general and assistant commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps. He was later a very successful business exec. Boomer led the Marines in Desert Shield and Desert Storm during the Gulf War. Was Boomer a Mason?
Boomer is a Mason.
Boomer is a Mason. This one's going to throw everyone off.
Oh, General Norman.
No. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah.
General Norman Swartzkopf Sr.
Senior, not junior.
Senior.
Senior, not junior,
Okay.
that we all know of. So,
He was a major general, fought during World War I and World War II, first chief of the New Jersey State Police.
he was the first ever.
He investigated the Lindbergh kidnapping.
Okay, see?
Mason, not Mason.
I say both Normans are Masons.
You think both Swartzkopfs are Masons?
Yes.
I would say yes.
Yes, they are. He was interesting.
How about Lindbergh?
100%, because anybody who keeps track of us, they see that on our Masonic quiz. All of this tied, that's why we brought him back in. I knew Junior was. Senior, it was interesting, again, being the chief of police, or a first chief of the New Jersey State Police, but investigating another Mason's family member kidnapping, I thought was interesting. So let us know what you thought. Tell us in the comments, did we miss somebody? Listen, we could have been here all day talking about famous folks, but we wanted to kind of throw you off. Everybody that we mentioned were Masons. I think we're proud to have them as part of our ranks. If we got something wrong, let us know. But I want to throw one question to leave at you before we leave the podcast. Historical Light is a podcast that we follow that is based out of Kansas. He does some shorts. He asked a question that Russ and I both saw, and we asked it was something to this effect. If the founding fathers of your lodge were to come back today and see your lodge as it is today, what would they think? So we're going to leave you with that. Put it in the comments. We're not going to answer. We'll come back to that on a later episode. But would the founding fathers of your lodge, if they were transported in time, because Masons are time travelers, if they were transported in time to today, would they be proud of what we're doing to Masonry? Thanks for watching the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast.
Thank y'all.
Cheers.
Brian, thank you for your service.
Cheers. You too, my friend. Cheers.
What did you think of this episode? To continue to promote Freemasonry, hit that like button now. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give us a comment. the old-fashioned Masonic podcast, where real Masons talk Freemasonry. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a comment.